The Council of Galactic Species had never witnessed such a bizarre application to join their ranks. Humans, barely spacefaring for 3 decades, had the audacity to petition for membership. The 5 senior counselors, representing the most advanced civilizations in the charted universe, gathered in their crystalline chamber to review Earth's qualifications. "Preposterous," muttered Counselor Vex, his blue scales rippling with disdain. "They haven't even established colonies beyond their own moon and Mars. Their technology is primitive at best." The towering insectoid Counselor Trill clicked her mandibles, in agreement. "Their ships still rely on fusion propulsion. They haven't even developed proper gravity manipulation." The proceedings continued in this vein until Counselor Moore, an ancient gas-based entity that had seen the rise and fall of 1,000 species, floated forward. "Yet they have survived." Moore's voice resonated through the chamber. "Let us not forget the Fermi paradox that plagued our ancestors. The universe should be teeming with life, yet most species self-destruct before reaching the stars. These humans have endured nuclear proliferation, climate disasters, and biological warfare. Perhaps there is something remarkable about them." The council fell silent. It was true. The Great Filter had claimed countless promising civilizations. Something about humanity had allowed them to persist despite their violent tendencies. "I propose a trial," said Counselor Rin, her luminous form pulsing. "As is tradition, let one human representative demonstrate their species' worth on the proving grounds of Nexus 9. The synthetic intelligence Zool, final member of the council, processed this suggestion. Analysis indicates an 0.0034% probability of human success against the Apex Predator challenge. It would be most efficient to reject their petition now." "And yet," Moore countered, "we are bound by ancient law to give all petitioners a fair trial." Thus it was decided. The human diplomatic vessel was contacted, and instructions were transmitted. One representative would face the deadliest creature in the known galaxy, the Kryvax beast of Nexus 9, armed only with tools their species had, developed prior to achieving spaceflight. Aboard the human vessel Pathfinder, Captain Jack Foster received the transmission with a furrowed brow. "They want one of us to fight some alien monster? With primitive weapons?" he asked, turning to his crew. Science Officer Lisa Reed nodded. "It appears to be a test of worthiness. According to their data packet, no species in the last 300 years has succeeded." "What exactly is this Kryvax beast?" asked Security Chief Tom Miller, already mentally cataloging the weapons stored aboard. Reed projected a holographic image in the center of the bridge. The creature resembled a cross between an earth crocodile and a mountain lion, but with 6 limbs, armored plating, and an acidic spray mechanism in its throat. It stood nearly 4 meters tall and weighed over a ton, their records indicate it. Can regenerate tissue rapidly, has natural armor impervious to most energy weapons, and hunts using both thermal and electromagnetic sensing organs, Reed explained. "It's evolved to be the perfect killing machine." The bridge fell silent as the crew contemplated this information. "I'll do it," Miller finally said, his voice calm and determined. "Tom, this is suicide," Captain Foster protested. "We'll request another type of challenge." Miller shook his head. "With all due respect, sir, I grew up in the Australian outback. My grandfather was a professional hunter. If humanity wants a seat at that table, I'm the best chance we've got." Foster studied Miller's face, then slowly nodded. "What will you need?" "Not much," Miller replied, a slight smile forming. "Just some basic gear my ancestors would recognize." As the crew prepared for the challenge, none of them noticed the small monitoring devices the council had placed throughout their ship. The aliens watched with fascination as the humans discussed strategy for facing a creature that had killed representatives from dozens of advanced civilizations. What puzzled the council most was the confidence displayed by Security Chief Miller. Either humans were remarkably ignorant of danger, or they possessed capabilities the council had severely underestimated. The viewing arena on Nexus 9 was filled to capacity. News of a human attempting the Apex Predator challenge had spread quickly throughout the neighboring systems. No species had survived this test in centuries, and most considered it merely a formality before rejecting Earth's petition. Miller stood at the entrance to the massive biodome, dressed in what appeared to the aliens as laughably inadequate protection. khaki clothing, boots, and a wide-brimmed hat. He carried a canvas backpack and a long metal tube the Council's scanners identified as a primitive chemical propellant projectile weapon. "This is what they send to face a Krivax?" Counselor Vex snorted. "They might as well have sent a child. With a stick," Counselor Trill observed more carefully. "Notice the human's demeanor. There is no fear." Indeed, Miller stood calm and focused as the massive doors to the biodome slid open. The environment inside was designed to mimic the Krivax's native habitat, dense jungle broken by rocky outcroppings and shallow water features. "Human," announced Zul over the communication system, "you have 6 hours to either slay the Krivax or survive until extraction. Should you succeed, your species will be granted probationary membership in the Council." Miller nodded, checked his watch, and stepped into the biodome without hesitation. The alien spectators watched through countless monitoring drones as Miller moved with deliberate caution through the terrain. Instead of plunging into the jungle, he spent the first hour simply finding a rocky outcrop with good visibility. "What is it doing?" Counselor Rin asked. "Most candidates immediately seek out the creature to attempt a swift victory. It appears to be setting up a position," Moore replied, intrigue evident in his fluctuating form. Miller unpacked several items from his bag: a small pair of binoculars, a canteen of water, a knife, and most curiously, several small devices he began placing around his position. "Those appear to be primitive motion sensors," Zul observed. "Interesting, but insufficient against a Krivax's sensory capabilities." The human then did something that confounded the watching council. He began gathering specific plants and crushing them into a paste, which he smeared over his exposed skin. "Is that some form of primitive camouflage?" Vex asked incredulously. "Not visual camouflage," Moore replied. "I believe the human is masking its scent." This assessment proved correct, as Miller then took soil and rubbed it over his clothes and equipment, eliminating the artificial smells that would immediately alert the Krivax to his presence. For the next hour, Miller remained nearly motionless, only his eyes scanning the surroundings methodically. The council members began to grow restless. "This is not combat. This is hiding," Vex complained. "No," contradicted Trill, her compound eyes fixed on the screens. "This is hunting." The moment the words left her mandibles, there was movement in the underbrush 300 meters from Miller's position. The Krivax had caught a trace of the human's scent. The massive predator moved with surprising stealth for its size, its armored scales blending perfectly with the dappled light of the jungle. Miller spotted the movement and remained absolutely still, his breathing shallow and controlled. The beast paused, raising its snout to test the air. It turned directly toward Miller's position. "It has detected him," Rin stated. "Now we shall see how quickly this ends." But Miller didn't panic. As the Krivax began stalking toward his position, he calmly adjusted his rifle, checked the wind with a pinch of dust, and set his sights on the approaching predator. What happened next shocked the council. Miller didn't fire at the beast directly. Instead, he shot a tree branch far to the creature's left. The Krivax immediately spun toward the noise, exposing its flank to Miller, who took a second shot that struck precisely where the armored plates overlapped near the beast's shoulder. The creature roared in pain and fury, but instead of charging Miller's position, it retreated into the dense foliage, leaving a trail of luminescent blue blood. "Remarkable," whispered Moore. "The human understands strategic combat." "The creature is merely wounded," Vex countered, "and now it will be far more cautious. And dangerous." Miller quickly packed his gear and moved to a new position, careful to mask his trail. The game of predator and prey had begun, but it wasn't yet clear which was which. As the third hour of the trial commenced, the mood in the council observation chamber had shifted from dismissive amusement to guarded interest. The human had not only survived the initial encounter, but had wounded the Krivax, a feat impressive, enough to quiet even the most skeptical observers. Miller had relocated to a stream bed, where he carefully waded upstream to mask his scent trail. The aliens watched as he methodically set up a series of what appeared to be traps using materials from his pack and the environment itself. "Primitive mechanical devices," Zul noted. Yet the placement suggests advanced knowledge of predator behavior patterns. The Krivax, meanwhile, had retreated to lick its wounds, literally. The creature's saliva contained regenerative compounds that were already working to heal the shoulder injury. However, the beast was now in hunting mode, moving in concentric circles to locate its prey. Miller worked quickly, using thin wire to create trip lines connected to noisemakers. He fashioned crude spikes from hardwood branches and positioned them at likely approach angles. Most interestingly, he created a false camp, complete with a hat placed on a log and a small heat source tucked underneath. The human is using the Kryvax's sensory abilities against it, Counselor Trill observed with grudging respect. It understands that the creature hunts by thermal signature. A clever ruse, agreed Rin. But the Kryvax has evolved to hunt the most dangerous prey on 12 worlds. It will not be fooled for long. Indeed, as the 4th hour began, the beast approached the decoy camp with extreme caution. It circled 3 times before suddenly freezing, its head turning toward Miller's actual position 30 meters away. Something had given him away. Perhaps a shift in the wind carrying his scent. The tension in the observation chamber was palpable as the Kryvax slowly, deliberately began stalking toward Miller's hiding spot. The human remained perfectly still, his rifle trained on the approaching predator. He should fire now while he has a clear shot, Vex urged, unexpectedly invested in the outcome. No, countered Moore. The human waits for an optimal position. Each projectile must count. When the Kryvax was merely 15 meters away, Miller triggered one of his noise traps. The sudden clattering to the beast's flank caused it to spin reflexively, and in that instant, Miller fired. The shot struck precisely at the base of the creature's skull, where the armor was thinnest. The Kryvax bellowed in rage, its massive body thrashing as it tried to locate its tormentor. But Miller was already moving, sliding down an embankment into the stream below. Fascinating, murmured Zul. The human prioritizes mobility over direct confrontation. The Kryvax, now bleeding from 2 wounds, crashed through the underbrush in pursuit. Its movements were less coordinated now, driven more by fury than calculation. It reached the stream and hesitated, the water masking any scent trail. Miller had disappeared into a dense thicket 50 meters downstream. There, he quickly reloaded his rifle and prepared for the next phase of his strategy. What is the human's endgame? Wondered Counselor Rin. It cannot keep this up indefinitely. As if in answer to her question, Miller began creating a new set of traps, but with a significant difference. These were designed not to distract but to channel, to guide the beast toward a specific location. The human is creating a killing ground, Trill realized, her mandibles clicking rapidly in excitement. For the next half hour, Miller worked methodically, creating barriers of sharp stakes and tripwires that would funnel the Kryvax into a narrow approach to a small clearing. There, he positioned himself on a rocky outcrop with clear sightlines. When everything was in place, Miller did something that caused collective gasps among the observers. He deliberately made noise, attracting the Kryvax's attention. Is it challenging the creature? Vex asked incredulously. No, Moore responded, his gaseous form swirling in agitation. It is controlling the battlefield. The Kryvax responded immediately, charging toward the sound. It encountered Miller's barriers and, as predicted, followed the path of least resistance, directly into the clearing. Miller waited until the creature was fully exposed, before firing 3 rapid shots into the precise same spot at the base of its skull. The beast staggered, but didn't fall. Instead, it reared up on its hind legs, exposing its less armored underbelly. Miller's next shot struck true, piercing vital organs. The Kryvax crashed to the ground, thrashing violently, but the human knew better than to assume victory. As the wounded beast struggled to rise, Miller circled to maintain distance while reloading. His weapon. It appears the human will succeed, Counselor Trill noted with surprise. The trial is not yet complete, Vex reminded them, and a wounded Kryvax is at its most dangerous. Indeed, even grievously injured, the creature remained lethal. As Miller approached to deliver a final shot, the Kryvax suddenly unleashed its acidic spray. Only the human's quick reflexes saved him as he dove behind a boulder, the acid sizzling as it dissolved the vegetation where he had stood moments before. The council chamber had grown unnaturally quiet. What had begun as a perfunctory trial, expected to end quickly and violently with the human's demise, had evolved into a riveting display of strategy, that challenged the aliens' understanding of so-called primitive species. The human displays remarkable adaptability, Counselor Moore observed as Miller assessed his situation. The acid spray had partially melted his backpack and damaged some of his remaining equipment. The Krivax, though severely wounded, had retreated into dense foliage to recover. "It's merely prolonging the inevitable," Counselor Vex insisted, though with notably less conviction than before. "The Krivax will regenerate enough strength to finish this." Miller seemed to understand this as well. He salvaged what he could from his damaged pack and began moving again, this time with a clear purpose. He headed toward a section of the biodome, where the terrain shifted from jungle to rocky highlands. "The human seeks higher ground," noted Trill. "A standard tactical advantage. But also a more exposed position," countered Rin. "The Krivax will have fewer approach angles to defend, but the human will have nowhere to hide." Miller reached a plateau overlooking a narrow ravine. There, he began constructing something that puzzled the alien observers, a framework of branches, lashed together with cord from his pack, fitted with his remaining wire to create a crude but functional mechanism. "What is this device?" Zool inquired, its synthetic consciousness rapidly analyzing the construction. "It appears to be a trap of some kind," Moore responded, equally mystified. Miller completed his work as the 5th hour of the trial began. The trap was positioned at the only easy access point to the plateau. He then did something that shocked the observers. He built a small fire. "Is it surrendering?" asked Vex in disbelief, "giving away its position so blatantly?" "No," Trill replied, her compound eyes gleaming with sudden understanding. "The human is controlling the engagement again. It knows the Krivax will come." Indeed, within minutes, the beast emerged from the tree line below, drawn by both the light and heat of the fire. Its movements were sluggish but determined, blue blood still seeping from its wounds. Miller positioned himself behind a rock formation, rifle ready. The Krivax began ascending the rocky path toward the plateau, precisely as Miller had anticipated. When it reached the narrowest section of the trail, its massive foot triggered the trap, a spring-loaded mechanism that drove several sharpened stakes into the creature's already wounded underbelly. The beast's roar of pain echoed throughout the biodome. It thrashed violently, dislodging the stakes but further tearing its wounds. In its frenzy, it charged directly toward Miller's position. Miller stood his ground, aimed carefully, and fired repeatedly at the approaching monster. Each shot struck, with precision, targeting the same vulnerable areas he had identified earlier. Still, the Krivax kept coming, driven by pain and rage. When the beast was mere meters away, Miller's rifle clicked empty. The watching council members collectively tensed, certain they were about to witness the human's demise. Instead, Miller dropped his rifle and drew his hunting knife. As the Krivax lunged, he dove to the side, using the creature's momentum against it. In a display of shocking agility, he managed to grab one of the bony protrusions on the beast's head and hauled himself onto its back. "Impossible!" exclaimed Vex. No sentient being would willingly engage a Krivax in close combat. Yet that was precisely what Miller was doing. Clinging to the thrashing creature, he drove his knife repeatedly into the soft tissue between the armored plates at the base of the skull, the same vulnerable spot his bullets had targeted. The Krivax bucked and rolled, trying to dislodge the human. Acid spray erupted from its throat, but the angle prevented it from hitting Miller. With one final, powerful thrust, Miller drove the knife deep into the beast's brainstem and twisted. The massive predator stiffened, then collapsed. Its 6 limbs twitched violently for several seconds, before finally going still. Miller rolled off the carcass, breathing heavily, his clothing torn and spotted with both red human blood and the luminescent blue of the Krivax. He checked the creature carefully, ensuring it was truly dead, before finally allowing himself to sit down beside his fallen foe. Through the monitoring drones, the council observed as Miller placed a hand on the Krivax's flank in what appeared to be a gesture of respect. "The human honors its opponent," Moore noted quietly. "After brutally slaughtering it," Vex added, though his tone conveyed something closer to awe than criticism. "No," Trill corrected. "After hunting it with skill and purpose. There was nothing brutal about this encounter. It was calculated from beginning to end." As the reality of what they had witnessed sank in, Counselor Rin's luminous form brightened. We have severely underestimated this species. The Council of Galactic Species convened an emergency session immediately following the trial. Never in recorded history had a Kryvax been defeated in single combat by a representative of a species at humanity's technological level. This outcome defies all probability models, Zul stated, its synthetic voice carrying a rare note of confusion. Analysis of human physiological capabilities indicated no scenario in which victory was possible. Clearly your analysis was flawed, Counselor, Trill replied. It failed to account for adaptability, strategic thinking, and whatever that quality was that allowed the human to engage in close combat despite overwhelming physical disadvantage. Courage, offered Moore quietly. An irrational but evidently effective characteristic. While the council debated, Miller was brought to a medical facility where xenobiologists marveled at his relatively minor injuries. The human had suffered lacerations, bruising, and mild acid burns, but nothing life-threatening. Captain Foster and Science Officer Reed were permitted to join him, bringing fresh clothing and personal items from their ship. You actually killed it with a knife, Foster said, shaking his head in disbelief as he handed Miller a clean uniform. When they showed us the recording, I thought it was some kind of simulation. Miller winced as a medical drone applied regenerative gel to a cut on his forearm. It wasn't my first choice of tactics, Captain. But when the ammunition ran out, options became limited. The council is in an uproar, Reed informed them, checking data on her portable screen. According to our diplomatic liaison, they're reconsidering not just our petition, but their entire classification system for developing species. Well, that wasn't my intention, Miller said with a tired smile. I was just trying not to get eaten. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, the debate had shifted from shock to implications. If humans can accomplish this with primitive weaponry, what might they achieve with access to galactic technology? Vex asked, his scales now rippling with concern rather than disdain. Perhaps the question we should be asking, Counselor Rin suggested, is what we might learn from them. Their approach to problem-solving is unconventional. Unconventional? Vex scoffed. The human used projectile weapons and bladed tools that haven't been seen in civilized combat for millennia. Yet they proved effective against an adversary that our energy weapons and force fields have failed to subdue, Trill pointed out. There is wisdom in the primitive that we may have forgotten. The council fell silent as they contemplated this idea. Finally, Moore spoke. I propose we grant the humans full membership, not merely probationary status. The chamber erupted in protests. This is unprecedented, Vex objected. One successful trial does not negate their technological and cultural immaturity. Their technology is indeed rudimentary, Moore acknowledged. But their adaptive capacity and problem-solving skills are exceptional. Moreover, they possess something many of our member species have lost through eons of technological dependence: self-reliance. Zul, who had been silently processing all arguments, finally offered its assessment. Revised probability models suggest human inclusion would benefit the Council in 73.4% of projected scenarios. Their unique perspectives could provide solution paths that current Council thinking cannot generate. As the debate continued, news of Miller's victory spread throughout neighboring systems. Recordings of the trial, particularly the final moments of hand-to-knife combat, were transmitted across thousands of worlds. Species that had never heard of humans now watched in fascination as a representative of this unknown race accomplished what many considered impossible. On some worlds, the reaction was admiration. On others, alarm. Aboard the diplomatic vessel Pathfinder, Commander Alex Jones, the mission's political officer, was dealing with a sudden flood of communication requests from worlds throughout the sector. Everyone wants to talk to us now, Jones informed Captain Foster when he returned from the medical facility. Trade delegations, cultural exchanges, military attachés. We've gone from being ignored to being the most popular new species in the quadrant. Foster frowned. That's not necessarily a good thing. We came here for council membership, not celebrity status. Speaking of which, Reed interrupted, checking her communication device. The council has requested Miller's presence. They've reached a decision. Miller stood before the Council of Galactic Species, still bearing the visible marks of his encounter with the Krivax. Captain Foster and Science Officer Reed flanked him, all three humans dwarfed by the imposing chamber designed for beings of various sizes and compositions. Security Chief Thomas Miller of Earth, Counselor Moore began, his gaseous form swirling with formal patterns. You have accomplished what no representative of an emerging species has achieved in over 3 centuries. The Council acknowledges your victory in the Apex Predator Challenge. Miller nodded respectfully. Thank you, Counselor. Though I should note that many humans could have done what I did. I was simply the one present. This statement caused a ripple of murmurs among the observing dignitaries from various worlds. That assertion is precisely what concerns many of us, Counselor Vex replied, leaning forward. If what you say is true, then humans as a species possess capabilities that unsettle traditional power balances within the galactic community. Captain Foster stepped forward. Counselor, if I may, humanity does not seek to unsettle anything. We came seeking knowledge, trade, and peaceful cooperation. Yet your representative defeated a Krivax using what our standards would consider primitive weapons and tactics, Trill observed, her compound eyes fixed on Miller. This suggests humans have evolved as a warrior species with innate combat capabilities. Not warriors, Miller corrected politely. Survivors. Earth has its own. Apex predators, perhaps not as formidable as the Krivax, but dangerous nonetheless. Throughout our history, we learned to adapt and overcome environmental challenges. Using violence, Vex noted. Using intelligence, Reed countered. The archaeological record shows that early humans were not the strongest or fastest creatures. On Earth, we survived through problem-solving and cooperation. Counselor Rin's luminous form pulsed thoughtfully. Yet the manner in which your representative dispatched the Krivax suggests a comfort with physical conflict that many evolved species have deliberately bred out of themselves. With respect, Miller said carefully, removing natural survival, instincts may represent one evolutionary path, but it's not the only valid one. Humanity's history is not just violence, it's also art, science, philosophy, and compassion. The council members exchanged glances, communicating in ways the humans couldn't perceive. Finally, Zul spoke. The council has deliberated extensively on your petition. While procedurally, victory in the challenge automatically grants probationary membership, your species presents unique considerations. Foster tensed. Meaning? Meaning, Moore explained, that we are prepared to offer humanity full membership status, with certain conditions. The humans exchanged surprised glances. Full membership was far beyond what they had hoped to achieve on this mission. What conditions? Foster asked cautiously. Knowledge exchange, Trill stated. Specifically, we wish to establish educational programs where humans can teach our member species the survival and adaptive thinking skills your representative demonstrated. In return, Rin continued, the Council will provide Earth with controlled access to technologies that will help address your world's most pressing challenges: environmental restoration, disease eradication, and sustainable energy production. However, Vex added firmly, weaponry and certain forms of propulsion technology will remain restricted until humanity demonstrates additional cultural maturation. Foster glanced at his officers, then back to the Council. These terms seem reasonable, though our government will need to review the specifics. There is one additional matter, Moore said, his form shifting to a more formal configuration. The Council wishes to establish a permanent observation post on Earth, with human consent, not to interfere, but to learn. Learn what exactly? Reed asked. How your species thinks, Zul replied with remarkable directness. The trial revealed cognitive patterns that existing models cannot fully explain. You faced a superior predator with inferior technology and prevailed through what appears to be intuitive tactical reasoning. Miller smiled slightly. We just call it thinking on your feet. Precisely the capability we wish to understand, Moore confirmed. Many Council species have become so dependent on predictive algorithms and technology that natural problem-solving has atrophied. Your victory has forced many to reconsider the value of such skills. The implications of this statement weren't lost on the humans. Their perceived primitiveness, the very quality that had initially caused the Council to dismiss them, was now being recognized as a potential strength. Captain, Reed whispered. This is an unprecedented opportunity. They're admitting they have something to learn from us. Foster nodded slowly, then addressed the council. We accept these terms in principle, pending formal approval from Earth's United Governance, and we welcome the opportunity for mutual learning. As the formal proceedings concluded, representatives from dozens of worlds approached the humans, some curious, others clearly concerned. Among them was a tall, reptilian figure who identified himself as Ambassador Krell of the Syraxian Confederacy. An impressive display, Security Chief Miller, the ambassador said, studying the human with unblinking eyes. Though I wonder if you realize what you've started. Started? Miller asked. For millennia, the advanced species of this galaxy have defined progress as moving away from physical conflict toward technological solutions. You have demonstrated that there may be value in retaining certain primitive capabilities. The ambassador's expression was unreadable. Not all will welcome this reassessment. As the humans prepared to return to their ship with news of their unexpected diplomatic success, they remained unaware that recordings of Miller's trial were already spreading throughout the galaxy, provoking fascination, admiration, and in some quarters, deep concern about the species that could kill the unkillable with nothing but determination and a knife. 6 months after humanity's admission to the Council of Galactic Species, the diplomatic landscape had transformed in ways no one, human or alien, had anticipated. Earth had become a nexus of interstellar activity, with delegations from hundreds of worlds establishing embassies and cultural exchanges. Miller, whose name had become synonymous with human capability throughout the sector, found himself reluctantly serving as an instructor at the newly established Adaptive Tactics Academy in Geneva. Representatives from 37 species attended his classes on primitive survival techniques and resource-limited problem-solving. The irony isn't lost on me, he remarked to Captain Foster during a rare break between teaching sessions. They stood on a balcony overlooking Lake Geneva, where an alien vessel was skimming gracefully across the water. 6 months ago, they thought we were barely civilized. Now they're literally taking notes on how we think. Foster nodded, sipping his coffee. Reed says the xenopsychologists are having a field day. Apparently, our illogical cognitive leaps are some kind of evolutionary marvel. Not all consequences of council membership had been positive, however. Earth's markets had experienced significant disruption as alien technologies were selectively introduced. Some industries boomed while others became instantly obsolete. Cultural contamination was a growing concern among many nations, as was the psychological impact of humanity's abrupt demotion from apex intelligence to promising newcomer in the cosmic hierarchy. Yet the benefits were undeniable. Environmental restoration projects utilizing council biotechnology had already reversed decades of damage to critical ecosystems. Medical advances had eradicated several previously incurable diseases, and the observation post, established on a repurposed oil platform in the North Atlantic, had become a center for mutually beneficial research. More troubling were the rumors of militaristic factions within the galaxy taking increased interest in humanity. The Syraxian Confederacy, in particular, had been aggressively recruiting human advisors for purposes they declined to specify. Council security has concerns about the Syraxians, Foster informed Miller as they walked back inside. They've traditionally been expansionist, but they've been unusually quiet lately. Intelligence suggests they may be incorporating human tactical approaches into their military doctrine. That's not what we signed up for, Miller said with a frown. No, but it may be an inevitable consequence of our demonstration that low-tech solutions can overcome high-tech advantages. Foster paused as his communication device signaled. It's Reed. The council has called an emergency session, and we're invited. Apparently something's happened. When they arrived at the council's Earth embassy, a striking structure of crystalline spires in the Sahara Desert, they found the chamber in chaos. Representatives from dozens of worlds were arguing vociferously while council security attempted to maintain order. Councillor Moore spotted the humans and floated over, his gaseous form agitated. Captain Foster, Chief Miller, thank you for coming. Quickly, we have a situation. What's happened? Foster asked. The Krivax homeworld has formally petitioned for contact with Earth, Moore explained. This is unprecedented. Miller blinked in surprise. The Krivax have a civilization? I thought they were just animals. The beasts you encountered are animals, Moore clarified. But they evolved from an intelligent species that long ago chose to separate their evolutionary path. What you fought was essentially their wild cousin. They themselves have advanced technology and a sophisticated culture centered around biological engineering rather than mechanical technology. And they want to talk to us? Why? Foster asked. Counselor Trill approached, her mandibles clicking anxiously. Because news of Miller's victory reached them. For 50,000 years, no species has defeated their evolutionary offshoot in single combat. In their culture, this grants humans special status. What kind of status? Miller asked warily. They consider humanity to be worthy evolutionary competitors, Trill explained. They wish to establish diplomatic relations exclusively with Earth, bypassing the Council entirely. The implications were staggering. A technologically advanced species was offering Earth direct alliance, potentially undermining the careful balance of power the Council maintained. This cannot be permitted, declared Counselor Vex, joining the conversation. The Krivak's biological technology is among the most advanced in the galaxy. If humans gain access to it outside Council oversight, the potential for destabilization is incalculable. That's not our intention, Foster assured him. Earth remains committed to the Council framework. Yet you must understand our concern, Vex pressed. In mere months, your species has gone from unknown to potentially disrupting power structures established over millennia. First, through demonstration of unexpected capabilities, and now through special relationship with a reclusive but immensely powerful species. As the debate continued, Miller found himself approached by a tall, elegant being with sleek black fur and golden eyes, the first Krivak's representative many in the chamber had ever seen. You are the one who bested our wild cousin, the being stated in flawless English, having obviously studied human languages. I am Nexar, diplomatic envoy of the Krivak's Evolutionary Collective. Miller nodded respectfully. I meant no disrespect to your people. It was a trial of necessity. Disrespect? Nexar seemed amused. Quite the contrary. You honored our evolutionary design by meeting it with worthy cunning. For thousands of cycles, we have watched lesser species rely on energy weapons and force fields against our wild cousins. You returned to fundamentals, predator against predator. This is why we seek alliance. Miller studied the Krivak's diplomat carefully. What exactly would this alliance entail? Exchange, Nexar replied. Your species possesses intuitive adaptability, our evolutionary path sacrificed for biological specialization. We offer biological technology that could accelerate your development by centuries. Foster, who had joined them, frowned. The Council has protocols for technology transfer. Protocols designed to maintain the existing order, Nexar interrupted smoothly. We Krivaks have observed for millennia without interference. We have seen how the Council carefully controls which species rise and which remain dependent. Humans represent something different. The conversation was interrupted as Counselor Moore floated over. The full Council requests your presence in the private chamber, he informed them. This matter requires careful consideration. In the smaller chamber, the 5 senior counselors faced the human representatives and the Krivak's diplomat. The tension was palpable. This situation is without precedent, Counselor Rin began. No species has been offered direct alliance with the Krivaks in recorded history. And for good reason, Vex added sharply. The combination of human adaptability with Krivak's biotechnology presents significant risks to galactic stability. Nexar's golden eyes narrowed. You fear what humans might become if not kept on your carefully controlled path. We fear unintended consequences, Moore corrected. Humanity is young by galactic standards. Their culture is still evolving, their ethical framework still developing. Miller had remained silent, but now he stepped forward. With respect to all parties, I think we're missing something important here. All eyes turned to him. The trial wasn't just about defeating the Krivak's beast, Miller continued. It was about demonstrating our worthiness for Council membership, our ability to solve problems and overcome challenges. That's what humanity brings to this table. He looked directly at Nexar. We appreciate your interest in alliance, but Earth has just joined the galactic community. We're still learning the rules and responsibilities that entails." Then he turned to the council. "And with respect, if you truly value what makes humanity unique, you need to trust us to make our own decisions, even if those decisions sometimes make you uncomfortable." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Finally, Zul spoke. "Analysis suggests a 78.6% probability that restricted knowledge exchange between humans and Kryvax would benefit all parties if properly monitored. A compromise," Captain Foster suggested, recognizing the opening. "Earth remains fully committed to Council membership, but we establish a special research exchange with the Kryvax, with complete transparency to the Council. Nexar considered this acceptable, provided the exchange flows in both directions without excessive restriction." The Council members communicated silently among themselves before more responded. "We propose a joint commission, Council, Human, and Kryvax representatives, to oversee this exchange and ensure it benefits the broader galactic community." As the details were negotiated, Miller found himself standing slightly apart, watching the proceedings with a mixture of pride and concern. In the span of half a standard Earth year, humanity had gone from galactic nobodies to the focus of interstellar politics, all because he had faced nature's deadliest beast with nothing but human ingenuity and determination. A small holographic display on the wall caught his attention. It was streaming footage from his battle with the Kryvax beast, now apparently famous throughout inhabited space. The final moments played out, his ammunition exhausted, his desperate leap onto the creature's back, the final thrust of the knife. Ambassador Krell of the Syraxians sidled up beside him. "Quite the legacy you've created, Miller of Earth." Miller shook his head. "Not my intention." "Intention is irrelevant," Krell replied philosophically. "You have shown the galaxy that technology alone does not determine outcome, that even the most advanced defenses can be overcome by primitive means wielded with sufficient will and intelligence." The ambassador's reptilian features formed what might have been a smile. "Some find this terrifying. Others, inspirational." As the formal agreement between Earth, the Council, and the Kryvax took shape, Miller reflected on the ambassador's words. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage in dramatic fashion, demonstrating capabilities that more advanced species had forgotten or engineered away. Their perceived primitiveness, their willingness to face dangers directly, their adaptability in resource-constrained environments, had proven to be their greatest strength. The galaxy had expected a primitive species seeking admission to their advanced collective. Instead, they had found humans, descendants of prey animals who had learned to hunt, tool users who had survived countless extinction-level threats, beings who balanced technological development with retained instinct. The recording reached its conclusion. Miller standing victorious beside the fallen beast, placing his hand respectfully on its flank. The gesture that had so puzzled the Council now served as the unofficial symbol of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. Respect for the opponent, acknowledgement of the struggle, appreciation for the primal forces that had shaped them, both. In that moment, Miller understood something that perhaps the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to grasp: that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology, or even physical capability, but the unique perspective shaped by their evolutionary journey. They were newcomers who brought ancient wisdom, primitives who understood fundamental truths that advanced civilizations had forgotten. And as he watched representatives from worlds he hadn't known existed 6 months ago now eagerly seeking human insight, Miller couldn't help but smile at the irony. They had come to the stars hoping to learn from advanced aliens, only to discover that what the galaxy needed most was a reminder of the resourcefulness, courage, and adaptability that had allowed humanity to survive on their own wild world. The aliens had been horrified when a human had annihilated nature's deadliest beast with nothing but primitive tools and determination. Now, that horror had transformed into something far more significant: respect. And in the complex dance of galactic politics, respect was the most valuable currency of all.